It's 4:58 a.m., 2 minutes before the alarm, but they're already awake. Eyes open, mind clear, no grogginess, no negotiation with the snooze button, no internal debate about whether today is the day they skip the routine. They just get up. By 5:15, they're already moving. Workout clothes on, water bottle filled. The same playlist they've listened to for months because consistency removes decisions, and decisions drain willpower. They don't think about whether they feel like working out. The question never enters their mind. It's Monday. Monday means legs, so they do legs. By 6:30, they're showered, dressed, and sitting down with a meal they prepped yesterday. Same breakfast they've eaten for weeks. Oatmeal, protein, fruit, precise portions. They're not bored. Boredom requires attention, and they've already moved on mentally. They're reviewing their goals for the day, their week, their quarter. By 7:00 a.m., most people are still hitting snooze, but this person has already won the day. Not because of what they accomplished, but because of what they didn't do. They didn't negotiate. They didn't hesitate. They didn't give their brain a chance to talk them out of anything. You know someone like this. Maybe you are someone like this. And if you're not, you've probably looked at them with a mix of admiration and confusion. How do they do it? How do they stay so consistent? How do they never seem to break? Most people assume it's willpower, that they just have more of it, like some people are born with a bigger tank of self-control. But that's not how it works. Willpower is finite. It depletes. Everyone's does. Even the most disciplined person you know runs out of willpower by the end of the day. So if it's not willpower, what is it? It's something deeper. It's not about having more strength. It's about needing less. It's about building a life where discipline doesn't feel like discipline anymore, where the hard things become automatic, where the structure becomes invisible, and where the person you're becoming pulls you forward more powerfully than comfort pulls you backward. But let's be honest, there's also a shadow side to this. Because extreme self-discipline can become a prison, it can turn into rigidity, compulsion, an inability to rest or enjoy anything that doesn't fit the plan. Some of the most disciplined people are also the most anxious, the most controlled by their own systems, the most afraid of what happens if they let go even a little. So this isn't a celebration of discipline without nuance, it's an exploration. What actually happens in the brain of someone who lives this way? What are they getting right? What are they getting wrong? And how can you build sustainable discipline without losing your humanity in the process? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Discipline is powerful. It builds empires, transforms bodies, creates art, and achieves the impossible. But unchecked, it can also destroy joy, relationships, and mental health. The question isn't whether you should be disciplined. It's how disciplined you should be, and in service of what. Let's start by understanding what's actually happening when someone lives with extreme self-discipline. Not the myth. Not the motivational poster version. The real psychology. The neuroscience, the cost, and the truth that most people miss. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do hard things. It's about designing a life where the hard things become easy. Here's what most people get wrong about discipline. They think it's a personality trait. They think some people are just built different, that they have more willpower, more determination, more mental toughness. And when they themselves fail to stick to a goal, they assume there's something defective about their character. But neuroscience tells a completely different story. Willpower is not a personality trait. It's a resource. And like any resource, it's limited. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every time you force yourself to do something you don't want to do, you're draining that resource. Psychologists call this ego depletion. And by the end of the day, your willpower tank is empty. That's why you can resist the donut at breakfast but cave on the ice cream at night. It's not weakness, it's biology. So if willpower is finite, how do extremely disciplined people stay consistent? Simple. They don't rely on willpower, they rely on systems. Let's talk about the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain responsible for self-control, decision-making, and planning. It's powerful, but it's also expensive. It burns a lot of energy. And your brain, being efficient, doesn't want to use it any more than necessary. So when you force yourself to make a decision, when you resist temptation, when you override your impulses, your prefrontal cortex is working overtime, and it gets tired. But here's the key. Your brain loves automation. Once a behavior becomes automatic, it moves from the prefrontal cortex to the basal ganglia, the part of your brain that handles habits. And habits don't require willpower. They just run. This is why you don't have to force yourself to brush your teeth, you just do it. It's automatic. Extremely disciplined people understand this, often unconsciously. They don't wake up every morning and force themselves to work out. They've done it so many times that their brain expects it. The routine is encoded. The neural pathway is strong. So they don't have to decide. They just execute. This is why they seem to have infinite willpower. They don't. They've just minimized the number of decisions they have to make. Same breakfast every day. Same workout schedule. Same bedtime. Same morning routine. It's not boring to them. It's liberating. Because every decision they automate is one less opportunity for their willpower to fail. There's also something happening with dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. Most people think you get dopamine from achieving the goal, but that's not quite right. You get dopamine from the anticipation of the reward and from making progress toward it. Disciplined people have trained their brains to release dopamine not from the end result, but from the process. They've associated the gym, the early wake-up, the healthy meal, with the feeling of progress. So every time they do the thing, they get a hit of dopamine. The behavior becomes self-reinforcing. Contrast that with someone who only gets dopamine from the final outcome. They hate the process. They're white-knuckling their way through it. And when the outcome is weeks or months away, their brain has no reason to keep going. There's no immediate reward, so they quit. Here's another piece. Identity. Psychologists have found that behavior change is most sustainable when it's tied to identity. If you see yourself as a disciplined person, you act like a disciplined person. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with self-control, you act accordingly. This isn't magical thinking. It's your brain seeking consistency between who you think you are and how you behave. Extremely disciplined people have internalized this identity. They don't say, "I'm trying to be disciplined." They say, "I'm a disciplined person." And their brain, wanting to maintain that self-image, makes it easier to act in alignment with it. This is why James Clear writes in Atomic Habits that the most effective way to change behavior is to change identity. Don't aim to run a marathon. Aim to become a runner. Now here's where it gets interesting. There's also a genetic component. Some people are born with variations in the DRD2 gene, which affects dopamine receptors. People with certain variations experience less dopamine from rewards, which means they need more stimulation to feel satisfied. These people often struggle with discipline because their brain doesn't give them the same reward feedback. But that doesn't mean they're doomed. It just means they have to work slightly harder to build the systems. They need clearer rewards, more frequent feedback, stronger environmental design. It's harder, yes, but it's not impossible. The real secret of extreme discipline is this: environment beats willpower every time. If your environment is set up to make the disciplined choice easy and the undisciplined choice hard, you don't need to be strong. You just need to be smart. The person who never has junk food in their house isn't more disciplined than you. They've just eliminated the decision. The person who lays out their workout clothes the night before isn't tougher. They've just reduced friction. The person who deletes social media from their phone isn't superhuman. They've just made distraction harder to access. Discipline isn't about willpower, it's about design. And the people who seem impossibly disciplined have simply designed a life where discipline is the path of least resistance. Not everyone who is extremely self-disciplined got there the same way. There are different types, different motivations, different psychological profiles. Let's break them down. The optimizer. This person treats their life like a system to be perfected. They track everything: calories, sleep, productivity, finances. They're obsessed with marginal gains, with squeezing 1% of efficiency out of every area. For them, discipline is intellectual. It's a puzzle to solve. They're not suffering through the routine, they're fascinated by it. The data excites them. The improvement excites them. These are often engineers, analysts, biohackers. The risk for this type is analysis paralysis, or optimizing themselves into a joyless existence. The competitor. This person is disciplined because they hate losing more than they love comfort. They're externally motivated. They need a scoreboard, a ranking, a rival. Discipline for them is a weapon. It's how they win. Athletes fall into this category. Entrepreneurs. Anyone who sees life as a competition. The risk here is that when the competition ends, when they've won or when they retire, the discipline often collapses because the motivation was always external. The survivor. This person learned discipline as a survival mechanism. Maybe they grew up in chaos and structure became their anchor. Maybe they went through trauma and control became their coping strategy. For them, discipline isn't optional. It's how they maintain stability in a world that once felt terrifyingly unpredictable. These people often have the most rigid discipline because loosening it feels dangerous. The risk is inflexibility and difficulty relaxing even when it's safe to do so. The idealist. This person is disciplined in service of a vision. They have a clear picture of who they want to become, and discipline is the bridge between who they are and who they're trying to be. Artists often fit here. Activists. People building something bigger than themselves. Their discipline is purpose-driven. The risk is burnout, because when you tie your entire identity to a mission, rest feels like betrayal. The perfectionist. This is the darkest version. This person is disciplined not because they're moving towards something, but because they're running from shame. They believe that if they're not perfect, they're worthless, so they control everything they can. Food, exercise, work, relationships. But it's never enough. Because the goal isn't excellence, it's escaping inadequacy, and you can't outrun that. The risk here is obvious. Eating disorders, burnout, chronic anxiety, and a life that looks successful from the outside but feels like a prison from the inside. The monk. This person has transcended the struggle. They're not forcing discipline. They've genuinely rewired their relationship with discomfort. They've reached a place where discipline is peace, not war. These are rare. These are the people who've meditated for decades, who've done deep internal work, who've let go of ego and attachment. Their discipline looks effortless because internally it is. The risk is almost none, because they've balanced discipline with surrender. Most people are a mix of these types. You might be an optimizer in your career, a competitor in fitness, and a survivor in relationships. The key is understanding which type is driving your discipline in each area, because the motivation matters. If you're disciplined because you're running from shame, you need to address the shame, not add more discipline. If you're disciplined because you're competitive, you need to make sure the competition is healthy, not destructive. If you're disciplined because it's tied to survival, you need to learn that you're safe now, and rigidity isn't always necessary. Here's what all these types have in common, though. They've all paid a price. Extreme discipline requires sacrifice, time, spontaneity, flexibility, sometimes relationships, sometimes joy. The question is whether the sacrifice is worth it, and that answer is different for everyone. Some people will look at the ultra-disciplined and feel inspired. Others will look at them and feel sad. Both reactions are valid, because discipline is a tool, and like any tool, it can build or it can destroy, depending on how you use it. Let's talk about what nobody wants to admit. Extreme self-discipline can ruin your life. Not always. Not necessarily, but it can. And it does more often than people realize. Because there's a point where discipline stops being a strength and starts being a pathology, where structure becomes rigidity, where consistency becomes compulsion, and where the pursuit of self-improvement becomes self-destruction. Here's how it happens. You start with a goal. Maybe you want to lose weight, build muscle, get promoted, write a book. So you create a routine. You wake up early. You cut out distractions. You say no to things that don't serve the goal, and it works. You see progress. You feel strong. People start noticing, and that feedback loop is intoxicating. So you double down. You add more rules. You tighten the schedule. You remove more variables. And for a while this works too. But slowly, imperceptibly, something shifts. The routine that once served you starts to own you. You can't skip a workout without feeling anxious. You can't eat something unplanned without guilt. You can't take a day off without feeling like you're failing. You've crossed a line. And the worst part? You don't even realize it. Because from the outside, you still look disciplined, successful even. But from the inside, you're trapped. Psychologists call this obsessive-compulsive tendencies when it reaches clinical levels. But most people never get diagnosed because they're high-functioning. They're still productive, still successful, but they're also miserable, and they can't stop. Here's an example. The person who can't enjoy a meal because they're mentally calculating macros. The person who cancels plans with friends because it conflicts with their training schedule. The person who works 80-hour weeks not because they love the work, but because rest feels like weakness. These aren't disciplined people. These are people enslaved by their own systems. There's also the issue of identity entanglement. When your entire sense of self is built on being disciplined, what happens when you can't maintain it? When you get injured and can't work out? When you burn out and can't work? When life throws chaos at you and your routine falls apart? If discipline is your identity, then losing discipline feels like losing yourself. And that's terrifying. This is why some of the most disciplined people have the hardest time with unexpected change. They don't adapt well because their nervous system has been trained to rely on control. And when control is taken away, they spiral. Then there's the relational cost. Extreme discipline often makes you difficult to be around. You're rigid. You can't be spontaneous. You judge people who aren't as disciplined as you. You prioritize your routine over connection. And slowly, people stop inviting you, stop reaching out. Because being around you feels exhausting. And here's the brutal truth. Sometimes the people who are most disciplined are also the most emotionally repressed. They've learned to control their behavior, but they've never learned to process their emotions. So they channel everything into discipline. Every feeling they don't want to feel gets redirected into another rep, another hour of work, another task completed. They're not disciplined. They're avoidant. And avoidance, no matter how productive it looks, is still avoidance. There's also a phenomenon called moral licensing. This is when people who are disciplined in one area use it as permission to be undisciplined in another. The person who eats perfectly but treats people like garbage. The person who trains 6 days a week but ignores their mental health. They've told themselves, I'm disciplined, so I'm a good person. But discipline isn't morality. And optimizing your body while neglecting your soul is just another form of imbalance. Now, not everyone falls into these traps. Some people maintain extreme discipline in healthy ways. They're disciplined, but they're also flexible. They have rules, but they can break them when it matters. They work hard, but they also rest deeply. They're structured, but they're also present. The difference is self-awareness. They check in with themselves regularly. They ask, is this still serving me? Or is this just habit? Am I doing this because I want to? Or because I'm afraid not to? And when the answer is fear, they adjust. Because here's the thing about discipline, it's supposed to give you freedom. Freedom to achieve your goals. Freedom to become who you want to be. But if your discipline makes you less free, if it makes you more anxious, more rigid, more afraid, then it's not discipline anymore, it's a cage. And the fact that you built the cage yourself doesn't make it any less of a prison. So how do you know if your discipline is healthy or if it's crossed into compulsion? Here's the test. Healthy discipline is flexible. You have a routine, but you can break it when needed without falling apart. You miss a workout because you're sick and you rest without guilt. You eat something unplanned at a social event and you enjoy it. You can adapt to changing circumstances without your nervous system treating it like a crisis. Compulsive discipline is rigid. You can't deviate. You can't adjust. Missing the routine feels catastrophic. You'd rather skip an important event than miss a workout. You'd rather isolate than eat food that's not on your plan. You've lost the ability to be flexible, and that rigidity is costing you life. Healthy discipline is driven by values. You know why you're doing what you're doing. You've chosen this path consciously. You can articulate how it aligns with the life you want to build. And if it stops aligning, you're willing to change course. Compulsive discipline is driven by fear. Fear of losing control, fear of gaining weight, fear of being seen as weak, fear of failing, fear of not being enough. You're not moving towards something, you're running from something. And no matter how far you run, the fear follows. Healthy discipline includes rest. You understand that rest is part of the process. You sleep well. You take days off. You let your body and mind recover. You know that sustainability requires balance. Compulsive discipline punishes rest. You feel guilty when you're not working. You can't sit still. You feel lazy when you're resting even though you just worked 12 hours. Rest feels like failure, so you never truly recover. Healthy discipline enhances your life. It makes you stronger, more capable, more confident. It opens doors. It creates opportunities. It helps you show up as the person you want to be. Compulsive discipline diminishes your life. It isolates you. It makes you anxious. It narrows your world. It turns you into someone who's impressive but not happy. Someone who's achieved a lot but enjoyed little. Here's the critical question. Can you stop? If you wanted to, if you decided tomorrow that you were going to live differently, could you? Or would the thought of stopping terrify you? If it terrifies you, you're not disciplined. You're controlled by discipline. And there's a massive difference. The goal isn't to have zero discipline. Chaos isn't the answer, but neither is rigidity. The goal is conscious discipline. Discipline that serves you. Discipline that you can turn on and off intentionally. Discipline that's a tool, not a tyrant. And if you realize you've crossed the line, the path back isn't to abandon discipline entirely. It's to reintroduce flexibility. Start small. Miss one workout intentionally. Eat one meal that's not on the plan. Take one day completely off. And notice what happens. Notice if the world falls apart. It won't. Notice if you lose all your progress. You won't. Notice if you feel relief. You probably will. Because sometimes the most disciplined thing you can do is let go. So how do you build real, sustainable, healthy discipline? Here's the framework. Start with identity, not goals. Don't say, man, I want to work out 5 times a week. Say, I'm becoming someone who values their health. When the behavior is tied to identity, it's more sustainable. You're not chasing an outcome, you're living in alignment with who you are. Automate everything you can. Remove decisions. Same breakfast, same workout time, same morning routine. The less you have to think, the less willpower you need, and the more energy you have for the things that actually matter. Use environment design. Make the good choice easy and the bad choice hard. Want to read more? Put the book on your pillow. Want to work out? Sleep in your workout clothes. Want to eat healthier? Don't buy junk food. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Design it accordingly. Build in recovery. You can't sprint forever. Schedule rest days. Schedule time off. Schedule moments where you do absolutely nothing productive. Rest isn't the absence of discipline. It's part of discipline. The people who last are the ones who recover. Track progress, not perfection. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. Did you work out 4 times this week instead of 5? That's still progress. Did you eat healthy 6 days out of 7? That's still winning. Perfectionism kills momentum. Progress sustains it. Check in regularly. Once a month, ask yourself, is this still serving me? Am I doing this because I want to or because I'm afraid not to? Am I healthier, happier, more capable? Or am I just more controlled? Discipline should make your life better, not harder. Be willing to adjust. Life changes. Your goals change. Your body changes. A routine that worked last year might not work now. That's okay. Adapt. Flexibility is strength, not weakness. And here's the most important part. Know your why. If you can't answer why you're doing something, stop doing it. Because discipline without purpose is just suffering. And suffering without meaning is just pain. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about building a life where the things that matter become automatic. It's about removing the friction between who you are and who you want to be. And it's about doing it in a way that's sustainable, that honors your humanity, that leaves space for joy. The most disciplined people aren't the ones who never break. They're the ones who know when to bend. They're the ones who can hold structure without becoming brittle. They're the ones who understand that discipline is a tool, not an identity. And they're the ones who, at the end of their lives, won't just be able to say, "I was disciplined." They'll be able to say, "I was free." If this resonated, let me know in the comments. What's one area where you want to build more discipline? And if you want more deep dives into the psychology of high performance, hit subscribe.